I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is Kula Shaker.
For the big homie Jeff.
Let him know.
Jeff said that these people are usually considered psychedelic rock and they usually lean toward Hindu imagery, but this one was a little different for them. And he hadn't thought of this song in many years, but the virus thing reminded him of it.
I see. Yeah, the imagery here for the album is really interesting.
Yeah, I know. The person's all garbed up coming up one of those.
Yeah, but he looks like he's coming out of India, though. He's got
I thought it was like a weird astronaut.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's a psychonaut. Who knows? It's psychedelic rock.
Anyway,
that's what they call them, psychonauts.
If you're like, hey, how did Jeff get this song reacted to? The way to get your song reacted to is to either go through our PayPal or jump on our Patreon. And there's a tier for $125. And for the $125, you can get your song, any song, reacted to by us. If you do it 3 or more times with us, then it drops down to $75 per song. If you're like, that's insane, I would never spend that much, then there are other options for you. There is just like the regular Alliance tier, which is as little as $1 a month on Patreon. You jump in and you join an Alliance, and it's a group of other people that choose songs that influence we have a whole list on Trello that tells us what we're going to do next from the Alliances. So if you're interested in that, that's there for you. Links are in the description for everything I'm talking about. If you're like, shit, you guys aren't worth $1 a month, then you can go on Instagram, Facebook, or maybe it's not that you don't think we're worth it. Maybe it's just that life has been difficult because of COVID-19.
That was one of the most amazing manipulations. You're pretty good, but that one was...
I dropped it down for your sake, Vin.
That was class A.
So if you're like whatever, then you can go on Instagram, Facebook, any of our socials, live streams when we do them. You can jump on there and put your song reactions to. We are and we pick those here and again. We pick some of those. So a lot of times the live streams is where you're going to get your real pull with us, because then you can say something sad or whatever to Vin, and then Vin's likely to just give you everything we own. Anyway.
Wow.
Anyway, so we're about to do this song, and I've never heard of them. Maybe you've never heard of them. So let's give it a listen and give it a rating, because obviously we have power.
Please just play this thing.
And if you like political stuff, check out Vin's channel. Go ahead and say the name of it.
Middle America with Vin and Sori. Let's go.
Oh. That was unexpected.
it's the same for everyone. It's like the world has lost its head, and it's like all the prophets said. But will we arise to a new world? If we stand here together, we can laugh at what we've done. All our time has been wasted, and there's nowhere left to run. There may be trouble up ahead. Will we be sleeping in our beds, or will we arise to a new world? Look for signs and portents. Oh, I'm looking for a reason to believe. Will we arise in our time at the dawn of another meaning? Will we awake at the break of a great Hosannah? Well, there's nothing left to do. Just hold your breath and hope it's true. I will arise to a new world. Look for signs and portents. Oh, there's got to be a reason to believe that we'll arise in our time at the dawn of another meaning. That we'll awake at the break of a great Hosannah. Well, there's nothing left to do. Just hold your breath and hope it's true that we'll arise
That did not sound at all like I expected it to.
Didn't?
to a new world.
better?
Uh,
Yes, no, maybe.
no. I'm gonna pull up the lyrics here.
Interesting. Interesting.
It's so interesting because right now I am assuming what Jeff was talking about is the whole COVID situation. And that's because I'm pretty sure he put this request in before we had all this craziness with the cop and everything. So I think, you know, he's talking about that. You know, I would keep thinking about the because people are gonna be like, this is all off topic of this song. But I was thinking about, like, there's like a person that's on my Facebook feed that's like driving me insane because they keep saying the stupidest things about the subject. And I was thinking, wow, they would have judged Jesus real hard when he went in there with
Turning
the
over
tables. How
yeah.
dare you should
How
have had a
dare
peaceful
you,
protest by those people, and
Yeah.
all that was about money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, they did try to have a peaceful protest. As a football player a couple of years ago, tried to have
That's
a
what I said.
peaceful protest,
and
but
he got called a son of a bitch.
so did he also got driven out of the league and all that. But it's really interesting stuff. Interesting time we live in, that's for sure.
But I don't think that that's what he was brought this song up about. I think he was talking about.
It was originally the COVID thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But it really can work for both, honestly. He says, it says, if we stand here together and we see the world as one, we may think there's no future, but it's the same for everyone. But I don't... It's the same for everyone if we're going with the COVID thing. But it's not the same for everyone if we're going with the other situation.
Well, even the other situation, it's not the same for everyone. People with health care, who don't have to worry about who can center their health as the issue. It's
yeah,
not,
true.
know. So
True.
I think that's one of the things that's hard when you're a person trying to bring people together. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very powerful image to say we're all the same. Mm-hmm. And at some level, we have to say, well, we are all the same. But there's a lot of complexities to get to define what same actually means, and then why same is valuable. What do you mean we're all the same? Mm-hmm. Well, we just demonstrated from a racial, socio-economic perspective, there's lots of differences among us. So if you are a person, if me and you were walking down the street in the middle of the night and you said, man, I'm nervous, and I go, you're like, I'm nervous, I don't want to run into a guy, and I say, oh, we're all the same. Well, we are all the same, but that's not addressing her issue at all. And if I were to say, well, shit, man, when I walk down the street, I don't worry about running into anybody. What's your problem? I'm still missing it. So
yeah.
It's a very, very difficult thing to try to get groups of people together. And that's why, most of the time you need kind of dueling figures to do that. If you're looking at the civil rights movement, you had Martin, you had Malcolm, you had Elijah Muhammad, because it's very, very difficult to get these factionalized people together under the concept of unity. And I think a lot of times people try to flatten out the differences so that we can have the unity because everybody's on a level playing field. But when you have people in different groups that are just experientially not experiencing life like you are, then it becomes very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Or when people don't want to try to see from someone else's perspective.
Right.
If you want to just stick to your own perspective that you're a strong male that doesn't have to worry about somebody running out of the woods at you when you go out.
Right.
Like, you're never going to understand what it's like to live where I live.
Right.
Be in my situation.
Right.
I'd like to take a walk by myself sometimes, but I can do it, but I never do it without fear.
Right. And I've never done it with fear.
Yeah.
But I have to recognize that that's, so if I'm going to try to bring a bunch of people together, I can't minimize and disregard your issue. Mm-hmm. I've got to address it and still find a way, though, to still say we're all the same. Mm-hmm. And that's why I said, what does same mean? And what's the actual value of the sameness there?
Yeah.
So, that's a very, think about our culture. Like, just think about the village, right? When I say we're all the same, I'm saying we're all image bearers of God. We're representatives of God on the earth, crowned with glory and honor, and whatever I do to you is tantamount to whatever I do to God. So that's what I mean when I say we're all the same. But if I've got my secular atheist friends, and I think that question is a challenging question. Of course, we as Christians have 2,000 years of philosophers and questions and debates and ecumenical councils to where I can rattle something off like that. But that's got a freight of about 6,000 years of literally millions of minds thinking in one direction to produce that kind of that worldview. So from a secular perspective, I think it's a much harder thing to do because you don't have such a far-reaching sort of linear intellectual tradition. So you've got to, I think it's something where people are constantly trying to figure out what all of our collective sameness is. I think if you look at the abortion discussion, it becomes very plain when they will all concede, yes, it's a human being, but for some reason it's devalued to the point where we can, end her life and dispose of her. And I'm not saying this to villainize them. I'm just talking about just the pure logic now. I'm just dealing with syllogisms now. Like, I think it's very difficult if you are a secularist, especially a secular, you've got your Albany Roses of the world, who's a secularist and an atheist, who, her line is, look, if it's a Homo sapien, that's it.
Yeah.
It's off limits. So at minimum for her, it means that you have enough dignity to live. But if you don't have the image of God perspective, and you don't have that 2,000, maybe 6,000 linear sort of understanding of how we got here, it's not a criticism. I'm almost commiserating. Like, it would be very difficult to come up with, okay, well, where does value actually come from then? And at what point are we saying that something is valuable? And I think there's an obvious cognitive issue there when it comes to a concept like abortion, because it means that you've got an entire category of human beings that are not worthy of the basic dignity of life. Just not. And, 150 years ago, you had the entire discipline of scientific races that were saying that Negroes were human, but they were not persons in the sense that white people were persons. So I don't think... So when I say the same, I don't think that that's a very easy question. That's an extremely difficult question. And I think that that's something where, if you look at our current political zeitgeist, it is... You have everybody who will say that the opening, stanza to the Bill of Rights is, true. Everybody will say that. But in praxis, working out in the real world, it is obvious that there are certain groups of people who believe that, in abortion, it's development. You're a human being, but you're not as developed as me, so you don't have the right to whatever. And in certain people's kind of mindset, it's, race, right? You and I are not the same race, so, whatever. And, on the one hand, obviously it's a very crazy thing to look at and see and observe, but on the other hand, I just go, well, I mean, if your country is founded on this concept, and you are educated in an educational system that, overtly or subliminally teaches the supremacy of your people and your ancestors, and then you have this other group of people, and their history and all their contributions to the world are never mentioned outside of... It's almost as if the African timeline started during the transatlantic slave trade. So you automatically have a caste system in your mind, whether you know it or not, and that's the reason why people who consider them... I was just having a conversation with an ally, and I was saying, we've got some masked, very well-meaning young white people who are vandalizing buildings and all this, and then you've got black protesters saying, hey, don't do that, because when the cameras show up, they're going to blame us, and then they're going to use that to call us thugs, and they kept doing it anyway. And I was like, holy shit. That's how deep the white supremacy is even when the person believes you're an ally. And then this person started talking to me, lecturing me about Dr. King. And I was like, holy shit! With no irony whatsoever. I was like, I just gotta stop talking to this. I just gotta stop talking to people for a while. Because it's, but at the same time, it's like, you come up in an environment that teaches that. So, you can't really be completely upset at it.
Yes, but I don't understand, like I didn't really believe it until I saw the video.
Right.
Which one did I see? What was his name?
Which one? Eric Garner.
It was Garner. I was gonna say Garvey. Yeah, Eric Garner. When I saw that video, like I was in tears. I couldn't even believe it. And his name slips my mind, but not the event. And so I don't understand when you have this video. I haven't watched the video, but when you have this video that's going all over Facebook, it's impossible not to see it. If you want to see it, it's right there for you. And I don't understand how come people can see that and then make all kinds of excuses about it. And, I keep seeing them saying, well, it says that he didn't die from asphyxiation. He died from a heart, like a heart condition, a heart failure or something like that. And I'm like, you don't think treating somebody like that could make that happen? It's completely unrelated. He would have been sitting and reading a book to his little baby girl, and that same thing would have happened. Come on, people, stop being so ignorant. We obviously know, so it's just So I see what you're saying, like people are raised a certain way and you have certain mindsets, but how come the facts don't change their mind? Like why doesn't that, like for me when I saw that video, like I was changed after that. And it wasn't because we weren't even together when I saw that.
Yeah.
So it's not like I had skin in the game. I didn't have any family members or kids or anything that were brown in skin. But when I saw the video, it was obvious to me that this was wrong. And then when I started realizing that this happened more than just that time, because if it was just some isolated case, you could say, well, that guy's a racist. But then, well, what about the system around it that doesn't indict the people? And you know what I mean? Like, there's just, so then you have to say, what is happening and why are people, I don't know, I'm blown away, and I switch between being hurt and then being very angry, and it's a difficult thing, especially, you know, you see people's reaction if you cut them off in traffic. Mm-hmm. They will flip out. They'll give you the finger, they'll blare all around you, and all you did was cut them off. But they feel entitled to be at that place in the road that doesn't even belong to them. Mm-hmm. And they think for a second that I believe that if their children were getting killed, that they would just peacefully protest. You didn't even peacefully protest me cutting you off accidentally. So I don't think so. I don't believe it. It's just a lie. So
yeah. Well, you know, I mean, what can you do?
And I don't think, I'm not saying like, oh yeah, like people should burn down cities and stuff like that. But I'm saying, why are you more angry and more upset and posting more stuff about the buildings being burned, or, you know, I think it was a cop, he was like bleeding from his head. He's not dead. But you're more upset about that and posting all about that, and all your energy is going into that instead of the unjust killings of these other people. Like, you have to stop and think about that for yourself. So I just, you know, we don't talk about it much because I know it's difficult for you, but I gotta get it off my chest somewhat too. It's like,
yeah, I mean, it's like I said, you know, I said in I think it was a Slayer video where violence is it's a form of laziness because it's a very, very quick way to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So, you know,
yeah,
speaking out against those things and the protesting the way these guys are protesting, it's the right thing to do, and being nonviolent is the right. Obviously, I'm going to say that as a Christian, but also being a person who's seen how quickly violence changes people's behavior, considering the birth of this country. It is unbelievably, you know, on the one hand I'm like, this is so hypocritical because this is what their founding fathers did and all their celebrated people did. This is what they did. So on the one hand, it's over taxes. So on the one hand, to me, it's like hypocritical, but on the other hand, so few people know that about American history. So, you know, even now, like I'll see people talking and they'll say, you know, they'll say things like, the founding fathers never did this, they never. And I just told the guy, I said, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and say you're ignorant and that you're not a liar, because that's just not true. Unless you're gonna say that Samuel Adams and Paul Revere and John Hancock et al., unless you're gonna say that those guys were not within the group that we would call founding fathers, then I guess you'd be right. But if those guys are founding fathers, and obviously they are, then they absolutely committed acts of terrorism, and they absolutely went after their own people, and they absolutely looted and robbed their own people in protest against the British. That's undisputed historical fact. And again, this was not about the British killing people wantonly in broad daylight. This was about taxation, and this is also about trying to avoid the East India Tea Company having a monopoly. These are economic issues, much of their economy of which, by the way, some of the stuff they didn't want to be taxed on was their slave labor. So for the sons of those people, to put cast judgment on the actions of other people who are not protesting taxation, they are protesting murder. For the sons of those people to come out in any sort of judgmentalism is just. But again, most people are not familiar with their own history, so what can you do? But yeah, I try to stay quiet on it. I try to stay. I try not to have a bunch of discussions. I've exiled myself from my own page. I told everybody, I'm like, all right, look, I don't want any more people talking about this situation. And then, of course, all my friends are like, oh yeah, we get it. And then the two white guys, oh, I thought this was a play. What's funny, one of them is a raging right-winger and the other one is a leftist. And both of them came out playing the victim. I thought this was a place where I could express myself, da-da-da-da-da. So I just said, you know what? Just leave them. Maybe they need to have a place to ventilate. So I just left my own page. But it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. But again, if you've got a people who've been conditioned, whether overtly or subliminally, that they're a master race and they're going to act accordingly, even when they're trying to help.
Right. Right.
So shout out to everybody. But look, obviously, as a post-millennialist, I think this is going to happen, right? Like he's talking about, hey, maybe we're going to wake up one day to a new world, and there'll be trouble ahead. We'll be sleeping in our beds, or we will arise to a new world. And that kind of like, I was watching this thing about what's his face, Tolkien, and he was talking about this concept of eucatastrophe. And eucatastrophe is basically things are at their darkest and everything looks horrible and gloomy, and then out of nowhere comes some, Gandalf coming from the clouds or whatever and riding down and saving the day in the battle of whatever, right? Like, so he would kind of put that in there to kind of like give you some reprieve from the depressing grind of Lord of the Rings, right? And so this song is kind of like eucatastrophic, like you're sleeping in your bed and then boom, you arise to a new world. And I believe there's going to be a good world, but I don't think it's going to happen in a eucatastrophic sense. I think it's going to be a lot of same discussions over and over and over and over again, same situations over and over again. I remember I was telling somebody about that song that I wrote, and I said, yeah, I'll release it the next time one of them kills us. And that was my plan. I had planned that out or whatever. And the person was like, stop. What did you just say? Cause she was like, what? Yeah. And to this moment, I don't really understand where her shock is coming from, but conceptually I understand. She's like, so you're saying that, this is such a sure thing to you that this is going to happen, that you're going to, whatever. But, so there's going to be a lot of those until everybody kind of figures it out. So, but we do believe as post-millennialists that's what's going to happen, that Jesus is going to change the hearts of everybody so that people don't end up wanting to kill everybody every day.
Well, I think that I see what you're saying, like it's going to take its time and then all of a sudden it would be like that it's not going to be an overnight thing. But at the same time, like sometimes when you live in a certain situation for so long, you realize, like after you get out of that situation, like I went so long waiting for a son and now I have one, and it seems like I woke up one day and he was here. Right. Even though it took
that's also
a lot
true.
of years. Yeah. So there might be a sense in which that's the case. We've basically been traumatized for years by everything that's been going on. But, in a sense.
Well, I mean, some of us have. And then others, their trauma is coming. So, in that sense, I think we'll probably all be the same eventually, I guess.
Wow.
So, but it's a very hopeful song.
It is. It's very happy sounding.
Yeah. That album cover really makes me want to look into a lot of this guy's music.
I'm sure you will.
This has got to be. We definitely have to use this in the what do you call it?
I always hiccup a lot when I'm pregnant.
We're definitely gonna have to use this in the screen cap for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, this guy is he's an interesting fella.
Yeah, it was very happy sounding. So
And he's got a song called Go Vinda, which is also very interesting because I'm looking at
that's starting right after this review.
My Hindu friends.
Go Vinda! Yeah, it was kind of, like I was so happy, and I don't know. I just. It's a certain type of
you don't want
like
happy music right now because you're
I like happy stuff sometimes, but like I have to be in a certain mood for it, and this is, even when I want to listen to something happy, this is not the type of happy I want to listen to.
Alright, what are you gonna do the song?
5 for me.
Your ratings today have been horrible. This is a 9.4. In the immediate, I don't believe a word of it. I'm not gonna be myself probably for the next 3 weeks. I don't believe a word of it in the immediate, but I know I'm gonna switch back to normal after a while. But yeah, this is a good song. It was a very necessary song, and it's very interesting that we waited. God kind of knew what people needed to hear.
I know.
And what I needed to hear. It's a good song.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. It's so funny because you're an emotional voter. Like, probably if I wasn't in the...
I'm so glad the kids are recognizing that we're recording and not letting the baby bang on the door like that.
It's awesome.
They're so good.
Yeah. If I wasn't in the state of mind, it probably would have been significantly lower, but...
That's funny.
It's funny, like, I thought, like, my state of mind was going to make for some very harsh voting. But I don't know. A couple of the songs have been like, you know what? Okay, things aren't that bad.
Oh, that was go back to that.
Although the cocaine song earlier did not accomplish.
Well, good.
I'd say, well, shit, man.
You know what? That's the answer.
That's the answer. Love is the answer.
God.
Jesus is the answer. That's what I mean. All right, there you go. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone.
just one. We may think there's no future, but it's the same for everyone. It's like the world has lost its head, and it's like all the prophets said. But will we arrive